Now, in this portfolio that we developed, we had a language passport. One of the problems with these portfolios is that they're meant to be for learners, but you've got to get across the teacher as well. So we had these introductions that were bilingual in English and Irish, and rhetorically addressed to learners, but in fact were explaining to teachers how we hoped the thing would be used. We had a version of the so-called standard adult passport. This was a version of the passport that was developed at the end of the pilot projects in 2000, so that developers of portfolios for learners in upper secondary and beyond would be encouraged to use it in order to have a version that would be transnational. So we had this, and we were very proud of it because it was in 4 languages. That was for school leavers. We had a sort of interim process passport that had personal information and those kind of things. And then in the language biography, these were the things we focused on. Again, an introduction, my general aims and reflections, my checklist of target skills, and we did this in 5 languages, so all these checklists, which ran from A1 to B2, which was a mistake, but I'll explain that in a moment. So we had the checklist 5 times over. And then setting goals and thinking about learning, things I notice about language and culture, how I solve communication problems, methods I used to learn languages, intercultural experiences, and heritage languages. And the idea, of course, was that these pages would be used from time to time, recursively, sometimes individually, sometimes in interaction with one another, to support the kind of ongoing reflective processes that we felt were important. And we wanted them, of course, as far as possible, to be in the language that was being taught or learned. And then the dossier was really open form, because there was no point in trying to constrain that. And we had an appendix which had a version in English of the checklists. We knew that was going to be necessary because it would save teachers the embarrassment of having to admit they didn't understand any of the descriptors. I didn't mean any in an you know what I meant. The odd descriptor. And a photocopiable version of all the pages in the biography, because these things are to be used recursively. If you look at a lot of these portfolios, you'd think they were designed by the same people as do the income tax returns. You fill them in once and that's it, but that, of course, isn't it. So the whole thing had to be photocopiable. Now, in designing it, we had to pay attention to the post-primary curriculum. We've got these checklists, and we derived them from the illustrative scales, but also from the mostly implied communicative objectives of the official curriculum. Now, when we did this, we came up with A1 and A2 descriptors for lower secondary up to the junior certificate examination, which is sort of slightly below the level of GCSE in the UK, and B1 and B2 for the leaving certificate. Now, B2 is not a realistic school leaving level, except when you've got a very well-developed immersion or bilingual or whatever it is kind of program. In other words, where you've got a lot of content learning going on through the target language. Where European systems of education are deceiving themselves, of course, is by having a progression of exam tasks that rises much more steeply than the possible progression of learning by the kids. And then you get all kinds of trimming going on around the tasks. If we wanted a portfolio that corresponded to stated curriculum goals, it was A1 through B2. But that wasn't sensible in relation to what was achievable in terms of a realistic understanding of what the levels mean and how they might be achieved.